The NBA Finals series is tied after a comeback victory by the Miami Heat against the Denver Nuggets, 111 to 108. There were many heroes in this story, including Gabe Vincent, who scored 23, and Duncan Robinson, who dropped 10 points in the final quarter. Joining us to break down Game 2 are basketball analysts, Coach Mark Molina, and of course, Coach Willie Wilson. Coaches, welcome to the game.
Thank you for having us. Thanks guys.
All right, but so there's so many things to unpack here in Game 2, so many things that happened, the adjustments and all that, but let's take a look at the general overview first, and let's start it off with the Miami Heat.
Of course, this is the Miami Heat's, bounce back game. It was their time to shine. So, Coach Mark, what did you see in this team? How did they get a win over Denver in Colorado?
Well, offensively, one thing stood out for me. Their three-point shooting today was amazing. I think they were like 16 for 35 today, particularly from the role players. Duncan Robinson, you mentioned him. You also mentioned Gabe Vincent. So they all, even Kevin Love, made a few threes, and that opened up the game for them. And they had a very good start because of that. On the defensive end, I love that because of their zone, they were able to make Jokic more of a finisher than a creator. Because when Jokic was playing in the perimeter, he was being guarded by Vincent at times. And of course, a 7-footer being guarded by a guard, he had a hard time playmaking from the top of the key. They had to put him more inside low post, high post situations, which is not a bad thing if you're Mike Malone. But I think Coach Spo, he was comfortable having Jokic at that position more as a finisher than as a creator, because as a creator, Jokic is definitely very hard to stop. So that was the gamble I think that Coach Spo made on the defensive end, and it paid off.
And Coach Willie, just to follow up on what Coach Mark said, so is that just a matter of Miami just making shots? Because, they missed a couple of open shots in Game 1. In Game 2, they made it. Is that just the difference between Game 1 and Game 2?
I mean, that's part of it, but that's a small part of it. Again, to Coach Mark's point, I wanna bring up the emotional and the confidence aspect of it.
Right.
Max Strus, you go 0 forever in Game 1. You come into Game 2, first quarter, and you hit 4 threes. Now, again, you have a mastermind of a head coach, not only with the X and O's, but also with giving confidence to his players. He's just telling Max, hey, you're a shooter, you're a shooter, you're a shooter. And what do shooters do? They shoot, they make shots. So to Coach Mark's point, they made adjustments, but again, they kept that same energy.
Now, we'll talk about Max Strus in a bit, and let's go on to the Denver side of things.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what went wrong for the Denver Nuggets? Coach Willie, it's their first loss at home in the playoffs. What went wrong for them?
Again, back to what Coach Mark said, making Jokic a finisher.
Right.
So in the 8 games this season that he scored 40 or more points, Denver is 4-4. So that right there is an amazing stat. Now, they do well when they share the ball, they get everybody else involved. But again, they can't play this type of game, not schematically, and then also energy-wise. And Mike Malone said that my guys just need to come with the energy. They played this first quarter, they came out like it was a regular season game, not like it was Game 2 of the NBA Finals.
And Coach Mark, of course, Denver, obviously they played a little worse compared to Game 1, but Coach Mike Malone, in all of the interviews and the timeouts, he kept on saying the defensive discipline. They lost that here in Game 2. Can you talk a bit about that? What did they not do here in Game 2 against Miami?
Well, there was a moment in that fourth quarter. Spo ran the same play over and over again. It was Vincent and Robinson screening for each other when Butler was resting on the bench. And they couldn't stop it. I'm sure Coach...
Early in the fourth.
I'm sure Coach Willie would know. It's basic. You have 2 shooters screening for each other. It's a simple switch. It's a simple switch.
Very easy.
But they did not switch for whatever reason. I don't know what the scheme was, what the rule was for them. But they did not switch. It led to an open Vincent 3, an open curl coming from Duncan Robinson. So easy shots in the fourth quarter that turned around the game for them. And it happened when Jimmy Butler was on the bench. So to me, that was the turning point of that game. And that happened because of lapses in the Denver defense.
And
I guess,
speaking of, role players, we're talking about it. Coach Willie was talking about energy in that first quarter thanks to Max Strus. Diego, I know you covered that game earlier this morning. What did you see in this guy? I mean, you're also a player yourself. What do you see in him, and what impact does it have to see a teammate, bring that spark and energy at the start of a game?
Well, as you mentioned, to start off this, segment that, shooters shoot, and every time you see someone struggling and you see someone, bouncing back after that one, as a player, you love to see that. That's contagious, that kind of energy. When Max Strus was just shooting the lights out, 12 points early in the first quarter, and then, it was just trickle-down effect. And talking about trickle-down effect, let's talk about Duncan Robinson. As Coach Mark mentioned, that stretch in the fourth quarter to start it off, 10 straight points to start off the fourth quarter to tie the ball game up, Coach.
I mean, again, you have Jimmy Butler on the bench. You're down entering the fourth. All you want to do, if you're in the Miami Heat, is let's get it close. Let's get it close. If we can do that, we get Jimmy back into the game, and we know the type of closer Himmy
Butler.
Jimmy Butler
He is him.
And true enough, Duncan Robinson just catches fire, and a lot of it because of the lapses on the defensive end for Denver. And then Jimmy just comes in with the finishing touches.
As a coach, what do you usually tell your players? Like to come alive in the fourth? I mean, I'm sure there was a huddle with Coach Spo at that, but usually, like, how does it work? What do you tell your players? Is that something you saw in Miami, or did they just turn on the switch and there was no looking back from then on?
Well, I mean, again, you're in that huddle, and Coach Spo, he's a magician in there. Okay, he knows exactly what buttons to push. He created pretty much that Miami culture. So all he has to do is just flip the switch in this, guys. This is what we need. It's not what I want. This is what we need. Go make it happen. That's about pretty much it.
And talking about making it happen, Coach Mark, Jimmy Butler was obviously more aggressive in this ball game, not just in scoring, but also, giving out assists. How huge of a difference is Jimmy Butler for the Miami Heat, especially dito? They got the game too.
Butler is most effective when he doesn't have to do everything.
Right.
Especially from the beginning of the game. That's why it's important for Vincent to be hot early, for Duncan Robinson to have that fourth quarter. Because Jimmy, last 6 minutes, he was so fresh.
Right.
He came in, hit the corner three.
Great point,
and
Coach.
then he got an end one. The next play, the last 5 minutes was Jimmy time, and he could do it because he was still fresh. He didn't have to do it. He didn't have to carry the team the entire game, and to me that made all the difference. So when everybody is getting their shots, and it happened in game one for Denver, it's the same thing for Denver. I think Jokic had 3 attempts in the first half.
Right.
He was like 3 out of 3 the first half of game one, and he was getting Gordon with some easy dunks inside. The shooters were hitting. So end game, he was very fresh. It's the same thing. When the supporting cast plays well, it sets the stage for your superstar to deliver in the end because they're not gassed yet.
Well,
That's
in
right.
in the fourth quarter, of course, Duncan Robinson happened, and it was a chess match. It was back and forth. And in the last 8 seconds, let's talk about that, Sam.
Yeah, let's now go over to Denver. I'm sure everybody, is talking about this. Denver fans, hello to our producer back there. But Coach Mark, what do you think of Jamal's shot, a potentially game-tying 3? Was it a good call for him to take that, or should have they gotten into a timeout?
I will not call a timeout as well.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Because a timeout allows the defensive team to, number one, make a substitution, put in better defensive players, and to scheme it to have a better scheme.
Right.
I would live with Jamal's shot. It was a tough shot, but under those circumstances, it's a shot that he can make. Yes. It was for to send the game into overtime. That was definitely not on Mike Malone. He trusts his players to make the right decision. It was a decent shot by Jamal. If I was the coach in that situation, I will not call a timeout.
Well, Coach Mike and Jamal himself said that, I've made that shot a couple of times in my career, so they would live with that. And, let's move on. Looking forward to the next games, Coach. They're going to go back to Miami. They're going to Miami. I mean, technically now, Miami has home court advantage. Coach Willie, what do you see? Adjustments? Of course, we saw Kevin Love in the starting lineup. What else in the chess match are you going to see here, Coach?
Well, I mean, was Kevin Love inserted into that starting lineup because they wanted to make a change or because they had to? We know that Caleb Martin was sick.
Right.
All right. But that first game, that lineup wasn't effective. And a lot of times, coaches kind of hold back on making adjustments too quickly as far as player lineups and this and that. But I think that because having Caleb not 100%, it was an easy call. And it was the right call for Coach Spo to change that starting lineup. And keep in mind, Game 3, we have a hero coming back.
Yeah.
Tyler Hero will be entering the game. And I think he doesn't really mess up the rotation because he's another player that can, kind of play make for them. And he's a three-point shot maker. And we know that the three-point shot was huge for them in Game 2.
Well, we're still not sure what kind of role Tyler Hero will play, but for sure, easy 20 points. I mean, that's his average in the regular season.
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be very interesting coming into Game 3. And Coach Mark, let's talk about Denver this time, of course. They haven't played the perfect game yet here in the finals, even though they won that Game 1 in a convincing manner. Michael Porter Jr. has not shot well yet. I mean, KCP did not shoot well at all here in Game 2. What do you expect from this Denver team, Coach, coming into Game 3?
They're still the favorites.
Yeah.
Denver, they're still much talented than Miami. You're gonna see a lot of zone offense with zone offense in their practices for sure. A lot on how Jokic can still be effective as a passer in the zone. You're gonna see a lot of that, and they're gonna drill that for sure in the next few days in their practices. Now, on the defensive end, I think it's just more focus and mindset in stopping. It's a different thing being beaten by a Jimmy Butler 45-point game or a 50-point game. Sometimes you just have to give it to him. But to give up that many open threes to the three-point shooters of Miami, and as Coach Willie said, it's going to get worse for them because the Hero's coming back. There'll be more options here as far as shooting for the Miami Heat. So if you're Denver, you just have to be very disciplined. Because when you're playing against guys like Vincent and Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin, these guys are not all-world offensive players.
Right.
They just, Spo runs a terrific offense, but it's something that they should be able to stop. I'm talking about Denver. If you really put your mind and focus into it.
And, lastly, Coach, just very quickly, Coach Willie, Jokic, he turned into a scorer. Do you think that's going to be a problem for Denver if they just keep on making him score the whole game?
I do. I mean, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
4 and 4. Whenever he scores 40 or more points, and it was by design. I know Spo kind of jumped on a reporter after the game because I think he didn't want to make it seem like, man, this is our secret. I'm doing this on purpose. But you can see it. We're staying home on the shooters. We're not doubling. We're not doubling Jokic. Even when he scores, we're not overreacting to that score. We're gonna stick to our defensive game plan. We're going to make him beat us one-on-one and put the bigger lineup so we're not getting beat by Aaron Gordon at the basket. And we're going to take our chances and live and die with that.
We're going to see.
Yes, we cannot wait to see what will happen in Miami for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Thank you so much, Coach Willie and Coach Mark, for sharing your insights here on the show.